to TeqTalk, where we learn from leaders rewriting the operating system of modern enterprise. Let's start with the reality. 70% of enterprises say they have piloted AI, yet fewer than 15% have realized the impact at scale. The intelligence era is no longer about experimentation. It's about converting AI into operational leverage and P&L outcomes. So today's guest embodies what it means to build decision advantage under extraordinary pressure. Neeb, the Chief Transformation and Business Operations Officer at 8x8, brings a rare dual perspective. A senior transformation executive and former US Air Force F-15 fighter pilot with experience ranging from presidential escort missions to post 9/11 air defense and the training of 300 plus elite fighter pilots across allied nations. Very few leaders have operated transformation at this level, from fighter aviation discipline to enterprise scale execution. So in this conversation, we will unpack the enterprise playbook for intelligent era, strategy, use cases, P&L, AI-ready operating models, culture and adoption, responsible governance, and scaling and measurement frameworks. Joel, welcome to TeqTalk. Thank you so much, Joel, for joining TeqTalk. It's such a pleasure and honor to have you here on the show.
Jazz, it's great to be here. Really excited to talk with you.
Yeah. So, Joel, your career is one of the most unique and high performance journey in the business world. I would say that. So from flying F-15s on presidential escort missions and training 300 plus elite pilots to leading afterburners team of fighter pilots, advising 85% of the Fortune 50 to leading one of the most complex transformation at VMware, where you shifted like 40,000 person legacy enterprise into a modern SaaS company, and now driving AI-enabled enterprise transformation for 50,000 plus customers at 8x8. Very few leaders, I would say, have operated at this level across military, allied consulting, and enterprise tech. So let's start. Tell me, how did this fighter pilot end up becoming a transformation leader in this business world?
Yeah, great question. So, in 1999, I graduated from the Air Force Academy, which allowed me to start my journey into becoming a fighter pilot.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started that journey to become a fighter pilot, I went immediately into flight training, and I was struck by this transformation that occurred with me. And in a very short period of time, I was taught how to take a plane and take it across the country and land it somewhere else. I was taught how to pull G forces and endure, 9 times my body weight. And stay conscious throughout that. I was taught how to fly 500 feet above the ground through canyons, and then also how to fly formation 3 feet away from a plane, not 4 feet, not 2 feet, but 3 feet away, and weld it right there. And they taught me how to do all those things by myself. And to set this up, Jazz, how long do you think it would take to teach you how to do all those things by yourself? How long would it take for you to feel comfortable doing all those things alone in an airplane? What do you think that time frame
If you ask me, maybe a couple of years, but for you, I'm pretty sure it would be much shorter duration.
And that was the most fascinating part, that for everyone, it was 4 months. And so in other words, it doesn't matter who went through the program, it would take us about 4 months to complete it. And so if you can think 4 months from now, you'd be in the top 0.5% of pilots in the world if you're able to do all those things, because that's just the caliber of pilot that can do all those things. And what struck me was, while I love flying, and I got a chance to fly for 15 years and 3,000 missions, what struck me the most was the transformation I just went through. And I said to myself, if I can be a part of that type of transformation for the rest of my life, where you take somebody who's unable to do something one day and 4 months later, they're a part of an elite team and completely different from where they started, we could do whatever we wanted in business or nonprofits or, you name it. And so while I love flying, I knew that I wanted to be a part of transformations like that, even more than flying, for the rest of my life.
Awesome. I mean, 4 months. So what you did in all 4 months, how your life was, if you can just walk me through the thorough line, I'm pretty sure it's going to be very interesting.
Yeah. So in those 4 months, what it amounts to is that every single day, you are planning your mission, you're briefing it. So you take all of that plan and you bring it front of mind for yourself and talking about what the most important things are for you to execute that day. You go fly, and then you come back and you debrief. And when you debrief, you're doing this with an instructor and you talk about how you're going to do this a little bit better the next day. The instructor tells you 2 to 3 things to improve on. And then you do that the next day. And over the course of 4 months, you slowly take on these new skills to the point where you're in the top 0.5% of pilots in the world. Now, what I said there is not very novel, meaning that nothing I described is out of the ordinary, but it's that commitment to that type of rigor and that system that allows us to be successful. And so we see the same thing in business. If we can create an environment where we're radically transparent and we can do a debrief and talk about, I just got off a call with my team. I run sales enablement for all of 8x8, and we have a commitment to being radically transparent to the point where we record all of our customer interactions and we use AI to extract insights about how we can do it better. And it's exactly what we did as fighter pilots. The reason we excelled as fighter pilots is because we had a culture of debriefing whereby every single day we would figure out how to get a little bit better the next day to the point where you're in the upper echelon by the end of the experience.
Nice. That's amazing. And that's so powerful. So is it right to say that your whole journey, it followed a common kind of mission where you aligned teams, learn fast, execute with precision, right? Do you think it is right to say?
Yeah, and definitely those have been the common themes throughout all of it. And then, of course, in addition to that, it's a commitment to being open to the discomfort associated with that. Because, and what I mean by discomfort is, negative feedback, constructive feedback doesn't feel good. We all have egos. I don't always want to hear about what I need to do better, but it's what I need to hear. And when we're open to that and we create a culture around that, it's amazing what we can accomplish. So it's that combination of those principles as well as a culture that's willing to accept that type of feedback and iterate and change faster than we're comfortable with, that really proves success.
Oh, absolutely. I agree 100% with your statement. And right now, if we talk about the tech world, we are really in an interesting moment, right? 90% of the enterprises say that AI is their priority, but less than 15%, as per the report, have scaled really beyond the pilots. So companies have more dashboards and data than ever, but decision velocity is much slower than ideally it should be. At 8x8, you are in a space where communications and customer experience that produces millions of data, real-time insights. And if any industry is built for the intelligence era first, I would think this is one of the industries, right? So how do you define intelligence era? How it is different from the BI and automation, which we used to see like previous decades?
Yeah, I think the way I like to talk about it is that we're actually exiting the information age.
Mm-hmm.
And the information age was, of course, categorized and characterized by the fact that we had universal access to information. For the first time in human history, we effectively democratized access to information. And, before that, I'm old enough to remember when access to information was very valuable, where if I had access to unique information, whether that's, let's use an example of, go to Harvard Business School and you get to read all the books that are only at Harvard Business School and access to those instructors. Well, today I can pull up that same information on my phone and I can read that halfway around the world. And so we all have access to the same information.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't necessarily make us smarter, right? So we've had access to information and you can use that as an advantage. What I would argue that we're entering now is the insight age. We're leaving the information age. We're entering the insight age. What does that mean? It means we can take the mountains of information on the previous era and the universal access to it and now begin to extract and build the signal from the noise. We can start to understand how does this information synthesize to give me an insight into a direction I should take and have a prescriptive opinion about what to do next. And that's a really exciting era that we're moving into.
Again, I completely agree. So right now we are more into taking actions on the data and it's pretty interesting. So tell me, what are the biggest misconceptions leaders still have about AI?
We're still not seeing the value derived from it at scale, right? And the reason I think that takes place is the following. This reminds me a lot of like 2000, 2001 timeframe with .com. And if you remember that era, we had .com companies popping up everywhere. And a lot of them really didn't understand how to deliver on value for it. They were really just checking the box on saying, we're on the internet, we're on the information superhighway, right? And there's all this false value and hype. surrounding it. But of course, it would be a big mistake to go back in time to that period and say, hey, it's all hype. This is just a fad. The internet's going to go away. We know better. We know that, of course, it's defined everything we've done since then. And so the real question would be, how do you find the diamond in the rough? How do you find the Amazons and the Googles and the companies that really did make use of it out of all the noise and the false hype?
Yeah.
Then you could see the differences. So I could go to a company like, I'll use Sears, big name brand retail store and one of the biggest in the United States. And for all practical purposes, they should have owned what Amazon took over as a commercial market for buying things. They had the brand, they had the too big to fail name, they had I used to open up the Sears catalog and look at it and find pictures of things I wanted in exactly the same way that I now go to Amazon and go pick items. And so all they had to do was lift and shift that over to the internet website, and yet they didn't. If you went to Sears.com, it would be, I'm going to give you an example of like a real paltry website of maybe a picture of their newspaper ad, which is very common back then, and a counter that said, you're the 10,000th visitor to visit this website. And while it's kind of interesting back then in 2000 to see it take over your computer and show you that, you never went back. That's not something that really was useful to you. And then you went and saw Amazon and you're like, oh, this is what commercialization looks like with the internet. I understand the difference. Here's my point, Jazz. We lack that A/B contrast right now. I can't see what good AI looks like because I'm the one that has to create it. I don't have that version of Google or Amazon in 2000 that lets me see that yet because I'm still the person inputting the prompt. So the people saying that AI only creates a little bit better email, I don't really like it. It doesn't do much for me. They're right, because their prompts are only about to create a little bit better email. And then the folks who are saying it's revolutionized our business, we're doing amazing things with it, they're also right, but they're uniquely experiencing that. You can't share that experience like you could a .com website back in the day.
Of course. I mean, I completely agree. And just to rephrase what you mentioned, so you touch based on the value, which is so important. How do you think leaders decide that they are ready to go ahead? Their operating model is a good one to go ahead with. So if I talk about 8x8, whatever I have read so far, and I would like to have more insights as well, you're building something what you have called as enterprise nervous system, right? Bringing intelligence into your daily flow of some 50,000 plus customers. That's a massive operational task, right? That is something great. So walk me through the journey. What are you doing? And some suggestions on how leaders can really find out that their operating model is ready for AI.
Yeah, I'll start it by saying that everyone needs to consider how they're going to leverage AI for this era, because we're not going to have a choice soon. It's going to be so disruptive that we're going to be forced down that path sooner than later. And of course, we'd rather have a voice and a vote in that matter. So it's up to us to be prepared.
Yeah.
At 8x8, we're moving from a company that has provided what I would call communications plumbing for the past 30 years, which is no small feat. We're able to communicate, millions of people, billions of people at this point, actually, across the globe with our technology, whether that's video teleconferencing or a chat or other types of communications tools. And that's amazing to have the remote access capability that 8x8 has provided. We're moving from just a mere communications plumbing platform into communications intelligence, meaning we're able to, once again, look at this vast trove of communication data that we're already providing and then be able to extract that signal from the noise and understand what the intelligence is and the real voice of the company, the voice of the customer, the voice of the ecosystem, the voice of the product, and be able to extract that from all that communication taking place and leverage AI to do so. That's a huge undertaking. And so as companies consider, like, how am I going to become AI ready? What does that really mean? I would tell them that you have to consider how you're going to change everything that you do at your company. I'll put it in 3 buckets: the data and tools, the operating model, and the culture. All 3 of those things have to be completely reinvented for this era, much like they had to be for the .com era. The parallels really work well. So just like the companies that survived the .com era had to reinvent everything around that, we're going to have to do the same. The challenge is with technology, we often do the opposite. We often just kind of check the box on the new emerging technology and don't understand that we have to change everything in our infrastructure to take advantage of it. The best example is when electricity became available via the electric grid in the United States in the late 1800s. When a a company would say they are electric ready, effectively they check the box on having electricity. Very often that just meant that the building they had, that was never meant for electricity because we didn't have it, so it's not wired, had like a corner of the building that they attached to electricity, and they attached it to the electric grid, and maybe they had a lamp or something, going on in that corner of the building. And of course, it's not changing their business whatsoever. It's just they're electric ready by this, and nothing's changed. AI's been much the same, right? We haven't changed our infrastructure. We're tagging AI onto something. It does a little parlor trick for us, and it doesn't change our operations. So we need to consider how we change the infrastructure of the building. The born on the grid companies that were then architected from the ground up in the late 1800s were able to take advantage of it. We need to consider how we disrupt everything we do at our company from a culture, operating model, and a data perspective to do the same thing and reinvent for this era, and not make the mistake of just plugging in a lamp in the corner and say we're AI ready.
Great example, by the way, Joel. I was talking to one of the leaders, and the same question I checked. How do you know that your operating model is ready to go ahead with AI or not? So he mentioned that if your strategy lives in your PowerPoint and not in the behavior, then you're not ready. So that just popped up, and I thought to share. So moving on to the question, how do you ensure AI investment maps directly to the business outcomes? Because this is so important, right? A lot of times companies, organizations, there could be a lot of reasons, maybe peer pressure, or they have to, do something. Because of that, they start working on AI, but they actually do not have any business outcome map to it. So in short, there is no value, right? So how do you ensure that AI investment maps directly to the business outcomes? If there are any key pointers, if you want to highlight, or any framework which you follow, would be great to know.
Yeah, the most important thing that I tell companies is that don't try to invent something new for AI to do.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, I want you to first forget AI exists. I want you to visualize your existing processes. And let's talk about this from a sales perspective, maybe.
Yeah.
So your team in sales, I want you to visualize what they do currently. I want you to map out that process and how the first lead comes in from a customer, and you nurture it and you take it all the way through the stages of pipeline and take it all the way to a sale. What are the steps in that process? Step one is to visualize. Step two is to optimize. What I mean by that is all of our processes have become wonky, and we've thrown people and tools at them, and they become bureaucratic and overloaded. And before you bring any AI into the equation, I first want you to optimize your processes. Forget AI exists. Maybe that's 52 steps in that process to get your customer, through the sale. We could probably bring it down to 30. We would probably add a lot of edge cases and other things that we don't need to have in there any longer. Bring it down to 30 first. Now I want you to ask, what's the bottleneck in that process? What's the one thing that if you did more of it, you would accelerate that time to value for your customer, accelerate the closing of that deal? And once you identify that, that's where you're going to bring AI. But that process is very important. And I'll give you the example where we landed up. Building an RFP response often takes a lot of time. You can think of some large customer cases where you get an RFP, and this is, by the way, the point where you're stage 3 or 4 with a customer in pipeline, and you're past the discovery stage. You understand their pain points, and they say, all right, we like this. We want to see your proposal. Send it over to us. We want to customize for our pain points. And so very often what you'd have to do there is stand your team down for a week and say, all right, let's just focus on building out this proposal for them. And because we visualize our process, we've streamlined it. Now what we can do with AI is say, take all of the conversations prior to this. We have transcripts of all of those because we record everything. Put that into an AI tool that understands what a best practice is to develop an RFP. It has an example of that. And we say, curate and build an RFP for this customer that's built for them, specifically to their pain points, and use their language to answer all the key questions that they would have, and make sure that it's tailored for them. And what would have taken a week in the past, now we can do that in the matter of an hour, literally an hour. And so that was the bottleneck to our success, our customer success before, and we're able to optimize for that. Now, if we had just added AI, we could have figured out other places in our unsimplified process to add AI and just make things go faster. But when we do that, we're we're paving over the cow paths. And what I mean by that is we're putting concrete over the uneven terrain of our inefficient processes we have. And we're going even faster with AI along an inefficient process. And much like you wouldn't want to pave over a cow path and drive your Ferrari over it because it's going to get all bumpy and the wheels are going to fall off, you don't want your system to go even faster through inefficient processes, which is what AI would allow us to do. And so it's so critical to first optimize those processes and then figure out where the bottleneck is and then add AI into it.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And basically, AI enhances what you have. So if you have a great system, you have great outcomes. If you have just very weak data, poor data, you're not going to have it. So 3 points which you mentioned, and I've noted it down: visualize, optimize, and identify the bottleneck. Then you start and go ahead with your AI implementation. That's great. Yeah. In other terms, when we talk to the enterprises, they also talk about AI factory. So this is getting very catchy nowadays, and a lot of companies like NVIDIA, they have their own structure or framework for AI factory. So let's talk a little bit about it, both in terms of technical and in organization terms. What are some of the negotiables in this AI factory? What do you think?
Yeah, I would frame it a little bit differently. I tell 8x8 that I want us to become an insight factory. In other words, I want us to take the mountain of noise and information that we have and be able to extract insights about it, insights about our strategy, insights about our customer, insights about our product, and be able to pull all of those insights out. Now, the only way we can become an insight factory is if we have the inputs, right? We have to have the information. I don't want to go to generic ChatGPT right now and type into it, what should 8x8 do differently for our customers? It's going to have an answer, but it's not going to be tailored and customized based on current experiences. And so I have to first capture those current experiences. Without the inputs, I get poor insights. And so we have hit record on every one of our customer conversations. We record all our internal conversations. We've had to get into a culture. Once again, culture is the leading factor on this, where we're comfortable with that, where we're comfortable building out all those inputs, and then we begin to extract the insights. That's step one. We're an insight factory. Now, I need a culture and a leadership team that can filter those insights. Because if I get 1,000 insights, I can't turn them all into action. Matter of fact, I don't want to turn them all into action. I want to filter those and say, these are the ones that make sense for our strategy. These are the ones for us to take action on. And so I'll communicate those insights to my company. And that company, by the way, the culture has to be change ready, not change weary. Because the most important factor of that culture right now is that it has to change faster than the competition. It's going to be very different in this era. The companies that will win are not the ones who have built a product and then can squat on it for 5 years. It's the ones who are able to change and even disrupt their previous successes to go after the next success a little bit faster that are going to win. Change ready, not change weary. And then finally, an operating model that's simplified enough to turn that vital insight into action. So an insight factory, a culture that filters it and communicates it to a change ready, not change weary workforce. And then finally, an operating model that can turn insights into impact quickly.
Completely agree. And that model is a great success. I think it's if others apply as well, it's going to work very well. So you have touched a lot on culture. Let's go a little deep dive into it. And what I know and what I have experienced is that AI can work when people trust it, right? And feel empowered and not feel weakened by it. So culture decides whether the AI platform is a partner or actually a problem. So what are some of the cultural habits you are implementing in your current organization that actually is making AI work like a charm? So versus the ones they get stuck in different organizations. I believe it's the toughest thing, right? It's not easy. Technology you can adopt, but then putting that mindset of a different culture, it takes long.
Yeah, I had a conversation with a CEO of a Fortune 200 company recently, who's a friend and colleague of mine. And he was saying, I just don't know if my company, my team can take much more change. We've gone through so much change in the past couple of years. And what he means is, even as a society, we went through the pandemic and we all went home, and it's just been a lot of turbulence and challenging times. And change has been the constant in the past couple of years. But what I said to the CEO is that if you're not ready for more change, you almost need to sit this era out, meaning like this is not the time to be change weary. We actually just have to steel ourselves for even more change moving forward, to be able to disrupt ourselves even more moving forward, which is a tough pill to swallow. It's not great news. It's something that is difficult to do, but as much as possible, we need to ready all of our cultures for that, whether that's our corporate culture or our societal culture. We need to be ready for more disruption, more change, faster than we've ever experienced in history, because it's a non-negotiable. It's not our choice at this point. The cat's out of the bag. AI exists. AI is going to change everything. It's going to disrupt everything. And so the only way that we can benefit from that is to disrupt ourselves first. That's a really important conversation we need to have with our teams. We need to have with ourselves, and just to be ready for this. And the good news is we can be prepared. So change is never fun in any scenario. That change is always hard, but there are ways to be better at change. There are ways to be more prepared for that. And there are ways to accept that. And so as a culture, we need to start thinking about the ways that we can get ahead of it and what happens when we are ahead of it. Because the good news is, in this era, because things are changing so fast, is what I tell our team at 8x8 all the time. The change is hard. I get it. I'm asking you to, change everything that you do and continue changing everything that you do. The good news is, if you're 3 months ahead in this moment, 3 months ahead in terms of technology and adoption, you're literally a subject matter expert on AI at this stage. That's all it takes. 10 years ago, if I was 3 months ahead in technology, who cares, right? That'd be no advantage. That would mean nothing. But right now, because things are moving so fast, if you're willing to be one of those teams that stays ahead of that rate of change, you enjoy what will feel like a superpower in this moment, and to continue dominating the competition. So things actually get much, much, much easier if you're willing to accept that rate of change and move a little bit faster than everyone else.
Absolutely. That resonates so deeply, because every day there is so much change. So staying ahead 3 months, I think you are like 3 years ahead. It's just like that if you were like a decade back. But tell me some of the things which you're implementing in your company, which is really making people like 3 months ahead of the current time.
And so if you're going to stay 3 months ahead, then you have to make a concerted effort to bring the entire team along for that journey. And it's not enough to tell people, hey, go relearn things and go learn AI. So we literally host a session each week where we give the entire company AI training. And we've been doing this now for about 4 months, and we get together. We'll do it tomorrow. And we will train them on the newest things that are taking place with AI, but that's only half the call. The other half of the call is our opportunity to hear from the workforce. And they show up with all of their AI use cases. And they'll say things like, on a personal level, I just had my basement flood and I had to get it renovated and I didn't know what to do with it, but I took pictures of my basement. I uploaded it into AI. I asked it to give me some ideas. And wouldn't you know it, they came up with some great ideas and even showed me a picture of what it'll look like afterwards. And it knew what walls were load bearing and was able to do this in a really cool way. And I, of course, worked with a contractor afterwards, but I knew exactly what I wanted to do for that. Somebody else said to me, I was combating a raise in my housing tax. My house tax is supposed to go up, and I have no idea how to, to fight that. I feel like it was unfair, and I wanted to fight it. And I used AI to come up with a compelling argument and look for comparables in the neighborhood to show that it shouldn't go up. And I was able to successfully fight that. I love that story. Those are personal use cases. And then there are professional ones. Somebody would say, I used it to help this customer. I used it to close this deal. And we share all of these use cases that does a couple things. One, it demystifies AI to a certain extent, because this is not just our technical team telling these stories. These are people from all walks of life, all backgrounds within 8x8 that are sharing their use cases and stories. So all of a sudden it becomes accessible in new ways to folks, and a little exciting too. It piques some curiosity. If that person can fight their tax increase with it, then I can too. And maybe I'll try it for my own scenario. And then two, it allows us to see the use cases and best practices that we all can adopt. And this has been such an important element of helping to bring the entire company along this learning journey.
Great. I think this is so important, right? If leaders, again, of organization work ahead like this and get people together and start learning AI together and having discussions of the use case, it makes it so interesting instead of, feeling it like a burden. So tell me one of the use case from your life, personal or professional, where you are kind of dependent and you rely on any of the applications, AI applications.
Yeah. So at this point, Jazz, there's literally too many to even think about. And I'll give you an example before I finish this. But I like to preface it with that to say, if you asked me how often do I use AI every day at this point, it would be like saying, how often are you on the internet? Right. And if you ask me how often you're on the internet, I'd say, well, gosh, I used it to go somewhere with a mapping tool today, a navigation tool in my car. So I guess that counts as one. And I looked at my email. So I guess that counts. And I use text iOS services. So I suppose that's internet. My point is, there's no way you could even count the ways that you
Yeah.
can use it at this stage. And my AI use is the same at this point. AI is literally a thought partner in every single thing that I do. If you ask me to tell you all the ways, even today, it's just past noon right now when we're having this conversation, all the ways I've used it, I'm sure I'd forget one at this point because it's literally just so embedded in everything I do.
Yeah, and this is so true. I mean, it's getting embedded with each and every application. So the other day I was looking into my YouTube channel and the newly launched video which I saw, and then in YouTube we have started getting another, AI sign. And if you click on that, it'll summarize all the talk. I mean, with everything, AI is embedded and you just cannot isolate yourself from there.
So well, I was going to say, in terms of a use case, so I was a CEO of a consultancy prior to this, 4 or 5 years ago. I ended that time and went and joined our biggest customer, VMware. And my big takeaway was we had to have a small army of people to accomplish the same things that I can do with a very small team now with AI. And so as you think about what outcomes are you really driving, it amplifies performance to such a level that I've never experienced before. There's so many manual details and so much coordination that had to take place with our 100-person team that you don't have to deal with anymore because AI allows you to build better alignment and to go even faster and to augment your teams in a small team concept. And I do believe that's what the future is going to be, is many, many, many smaller teams and enjoy the ability to know the team members even better because it's not this 100-person plus team and all the names it's hard to remember. And it allows us to make even more progress with that small team.
Of course, I think companies with 1 or 2 team members are doing amazing nowadays. So the count has gone down and the performance has gone really up with this AI. Joel, moving ahead with our next segment, which is very important, which is risk and governance, right? In this AI journey, which is crazily going ahead. It's so difficult for us to even get track of it. Every day I have to read 5-6 newsletters to know what's happening in this AI world. But then it is risk and governance is such an important factor. And how do we protect customer data, trust, especially in communication? I would like to know some use cases in 8x8. What kind of governance and risk methods you are applying or having the frameworks on, because you cannot afford to have any mistakes, right?
Right.
So give us some key pointers.
Yeah, and I think it's most important to understand what the liability really is. In other words, what are the risks? And a lot of people that I talk to will say things like, "I'm not using AI yet because I don't want to be exposed to those risks. I don't want to have the liability that I feel like AI presents, and so I've just completely not done it." And I think that's a massive mistake because you're missing the fact that you using AI really doesn't expose you to any more risk than you're already exposed to.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, it might actually isolate you from the risk that you should be aware of, but you're not because you're not using AI right now. What do I mean by that? The risk of having AI is that it synthesizes information so quickly that what would have taken a small army of analysts to ascertain and to extract insights from in the past is done in seconds. I'll give you an example. If you were to go to my search history, my Google search history, right? Like everybody's got embarrassing things, maybe a medical thing or something going on that's in your search history. Probably, hopefully not too much worse than that. But there's private stuff in there, right? I wouldn't want to hand over my search history to you and just allow everybody to go look through everything that you ever searched for, all the embarrassing things that you've searched for in your past. That people just wouldn't do that. But it would still take a while to find it, right? You'd have to go through those. Maybe I could search for a keyword or something like that. It would take a while to go find it. If you put that same search history into AI and then say, what's the most embarrassing thing that they've ever searched for? Give me the top 5. It'll find that for you in 5 seconds. And so where I'm going with that is that my use of AI didn't expose me to risk. The act that I have this search history or I have this data is what exposed me to it. Now let's use it from a customer perspective. We say, I don't want to put my customer information into AI. I don't want to lose it. That's a viable reason to make sure that you at least using secure AI where you're not training the model and you're not handing off that customer data to a model. But you're not safer and exposed to less risk if that customer data exists. All I have to do is access it, and all I have to do is put it into an AI tool, and in seconds I can have all that information, all that critical information in a format that's easy to digest, that I can then use and exploit very quickly. So it's not the act of using AI that makes us puts us in a riskier scenario. It's just the mere capturing of that data, which every company does, and the access to that data, which has become so critical. If you're not using AI, but you have access to your sales data, your customer data, of course we all do, our Salesforce and things have that information. You can download that. If that data is accessible, then you're liable for the same risks that AI would have posed in the first place.
Yeah, very well said, Joel. And in this fast, rapid moving world, how do you really balance the innovation with strong governance? Because as we mentioned, that every day some new invention is happening. So
Right.
how do you balance?
It's the most important thing to do. And people get wrapped up around the AI and the technology and learning that. And as I said in the beginning of the call, that's important and you want to stay 3 months ahead of that. But being ahead really means that I understand what the adoption of it looks like from a legal perspective, from an ethics perspective, from a best use case perspective. And that's where all of our human learning will occur, right?
Yeah.
And so, for the past 30 years, if you created software, the
Mhm.
long pole in the tent, the thing that took you the longest would be in just creating the technology and coding it, right? Because that just takes a long period of time. And so they even created Scrum for that reason. You would have, 18 to 24 month cycles to create software. And by the end of that time, the customer problems look very different from when you started. And so they had to create this way of iterating faster and staying aligned with what the customer use cases
Mhm.
were, because it took so long to create the software and to do shorter cycles of creation in that process. Today, though, because of AI coding and because of what AI brings to the table, we can create the equivalent of Windows 95 one day and 3 or 4 months later to create Windows Vista, which
Mhm.
is really exciting because all of a sudden I can create technology to clip faster than ever before.
Mhm.
But it's also scary when you realize that the only way you can extract value from that scenario is if you sell Windows 95, you create adoption of it, you lead to business outcomes, and then you convince that customer they need to buy this next tool hot on the heels of it. That is an adoption rate. That is a cultural transformation. That is considering what the ethical and legal ramifications are of each stage of this technology, even faster than you're building it.
Mhm.
So building it is no longer the long pole in the tent. Your ability to adopt it, your ability to understand the ramifications of it, your ability to see the legal side of it becomes the most important thing you can do because it's changing so fast. That's what your constant conversation has to be around. How do I adopt this faster? How do I do it legally? How do I do it ethically?
Of course, I mean, such important points those are. And do you think sometimes leaders should say no to any of the use cases, even those look very promising, and you know that you're going to get success, but still say no because it might not be safe or it has got risk or something like that?
I would say that they should mitigate as much of the risk as possible and figure out how to say yes in this era. Why do I say that? Because the
Yeah.
cat's out of the bag. AI is here to stay. You or your competitors are going to use this use case. And so it's up to you how to figure out how to use it smartly, how to use it legally, how to use it in ways that you're comfortable with the right boundaries on it. I
Mm-hmm.
think it would be a mistake. And this is where I go back to too many companies are saying, I'm not using AI because I don't want to be exposed to that risk. You're exposing yourself to the risk and security challenges without using it. And on top of that, you're allowing your competitors to basically have a superpower that you're lacking right now. And so in this moment, I would caution against saying outright no, but I would definitely say yes, but, and here are the considerations that I'm going to have on it.
Very, very well said. That's the eye opener. That do not say straight away no, mitigate the risk, and then go ahead and see how you can implement it. So, with that said, we have completed most of our segments, and now we have our lightning round, Joel. So, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. You are anyway fast, so you have to say answer in one line, one sentence, and we'll go from here.
Let's
So,
do it. All right.
yeah. So, tell me one most overhyped AI use case today.
Most overhyped AI use case today, the one I see the most often, is the summary tool, and it's completely useless. It just gives a summary of something. We know none of us really use it, and it's a useless check in the box of the AI use case.
Great. What is the one underhyped AI use case?
Most underhyped AI use case. is to record everything that you're doing throughout the day and literally wear a lapel pin that records it. They have some of these tools that come out right now that you could use, and then identify ways and next steps for you to be more effective the next day.
One ritual every CXO should adopt to accelerate AI value.
One ritual to adopt it is to make sure that you create a continuous learning culture within your organization. Can't be lip service, can't be 10 years ago where you just want them to do their enablement training and make sure they're checking the box on that. They have to truly believe that they're changing and reinventing their role every day, because otherwise their role will be reinvented for them.
Mm-hmm. Great. Tell me one book you would recommend leaders to read.
Great question. So there's a couple. Jeff Wood's The AI-Driven Leader is the most practical book I've seen on AI right now. And then The Power of Prediction is another great AI book. But yeah, I'll leave with those two.
Great. Thank you so much, Joel. Your entire journey from Air Force to 8x8, it's amazing. It's so touching. And thank you for giving us masterclass on how to build an intelligence era enterprise. Thank you.
Thank you, Jess. Great to be here.